Thank you for tuning in to the Voice of the Victim podcast. We discuss a lot of sad and potentially triggering things on this show. We try to be as sensitive and cautious as possible, but if you are sensitive to things involving abuse and may be triggered, please think twice before listening to our show.
Welcome to the Voice of the Victim podcast. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Rosie.
How are you doing tonight, Rosie?
I am well.
Good.
I got home from work exhausted, but then I did some yoga, showered, had a glass of wine, and some cheese, and now I'm good. How are you?
What more can you ask for?
How are you, Ryan?
I'm doing well. My head's a little bit burnt out from writing this outline today because it is an intense story. So let's get into it. First, we're going to share a review.
Okay.
So this comes in from Miss Schult. Miss Schult?
I might be.
From the United States. So, Rosie, you want to read that?
It says, "Hit me in the feels." I listen to a lot of true crime podcasts, but don't usually write reviews. The latest episode, 137, made me feel some real emotion. Rosie, your personal experience and how you were able to speak about it was very touching. At one point, I was almost in tears feeling your young 14-year-old pain. I'm also touched by how loving and supportive Ryan is. Thank you for your unique presentation of the difficult cases you cover.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, this was a really needed review after our episode, and made me feel real good.
I really do appreciate you opening up last week about how you related to what we were talking about.
Thank you.
If you haven't heard it yet, definitely recommend that. But today, we're talking about Diane Schuler. This is a pretty popular case. It's a very strange case. It's a bit of a mystery. But we're going to just tell the story. This episode of Voice of the Victim podcast is brought to you by Yarn. Yarn is an interactive storytelling app where stories are told as text messages between main characters. Genres range from romance to comedy, horror to action, and more. It also offers video and audio-only episodes to watch and listen on your phone in a few minutes.
So when I first got this app, I instantly had to check out the Text from My Cat story, which is literally about a cat named Pumpkin texting his owner and bossing her around. Now, I know it seems really silly, and it is.
Sounds realistic.
Right? Bossing somebody around. It's exactly what I need in life right now, because life is so stressful. I want silly cat stories like this to follow along with. Also, I checked out another one called Limelight. This one's about a teenage girl whose boyfriend died in a car crash while he was on his way to pick her up from dance practice. She feels so guilty about this incident. A year passes and she starts a vlog to talk about her experience because that was her therapist's idea of helping her open up about it. All of a sudden, there's a huge twist in the story, but I don't want to spoil it for you.
So tap through the most addictive and immersive stories today only on Yarn. Trust me, with over 27 million downloads, Yarn is a must-play. Download Yarn for free on the Apple App Store or Google Play. That's YARN. Download it today to watch, read, and listen to all of your favorite fiction stories, from steamy to horror. Yarn has it all.
Right.
So, Rosie, you ready?
I'm ready. 36-year-old Diane had been camping for the last weekend of July 2009 with her husband Daniel, along with her brother Warren Hance and his wife Jackie, and all of their kids. They plan to head home on Sunday, July 26th.
So that's where the story starts, and we're going to go through the timeline of what happened on this day.
On Sunday morning, July 26, 2009, Diane Schuler left the Hunter Lake Campground in Parksville, New York, driving her brother's red minivan, a 2003 Ford Windstar. She was driving all the kids home from the campground.
I'm sure all the kids wanted to ride together. You know how that is. So it seems Diane volunteered to drive them.
That's a humble task to volunteer for.
Yeah.
In the car were her 2 kids, 5-year-old Brian and 2-year-old Erin, along with her brother's 3 children, 8-year-old Emma, 7-year-old Alyson, and 5-year-old Katie. Her husband Daniel left at the same time in his pickup truck, taking the dog with him.
Now they had about a 3.5-hour drive to get home to West Babylon where they lived. It's a suburb in Long Island. So they stopped and got some breakfast in Liberty at a McDonald's, which was about 15 to 20 minutes south of the campground. And they made it just in time for breakfast.
Oh, that's important.
Mm-hmm.
Those critical minutes before it's over. At 9:59 a.m., Diane and the 5 kids entered the McDonald's, and they were there until 10:33 a.m. After that stop, Diane stopped at Sunoco?
Mm-hmm.
Sunoco gas station, just across the street from the McDonald's.
Now, for this, there's actually surveillance footage where it shows her park at a gas pump. Then she got out, walked into the convenience store. She looked around for a few seconds and then walked back towards the door, stopping to talk to the cashier. Now, it looks like she asked him a question and then walks out and gets back in the car. And after a few seconds in the car, you see her leaving the gas station, but it's not just a normal driving out of a gas station. She, whips the car around super fast. You know how it only shows, 1 frame per second almost on the surveillance cameras?
Right.
Well, it took her maybe 2 frames to, drive forward towards the gas station, do a U-turn, and then get onto the street.
Huh.
Which...
So she was upset? That's what I would assume.
We don't know.
Right.
But, yeah, that's how it appears. I mean, she was there looking for something, which we'll find out later, but... yeah, she seems irritated.
The surveillance footage is extremely blurry, but appears to be 10:46 a.m. when she arrives at the gas station. According to investigators, Diane was trying to buy some over-the-counter pain relief meds, but she was told that they didn't sell any.
So, if she's in pain...
Maybe she was upset.
Yeah, that would explain the frustration and impatience, although it's never... justified to drive like that in a parking lot.
Especially with kids in the car.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, shortly after 11 a.m., Diane left Liberty via Route 17.
So at 11:37 a.m., Diane called her brother Warren and told him that traffic was pretty bad and they were going to be a half hour later than they planned.
Shortly after this, at 12:08, Jackie Hance called Diane. And Jackie is Warren's wife and the mother of Diane's 3 nieces that are in the car. But Diane sounded completely normal and everything seemed to be fine.
Yeah, so up to this point, besides that, the gas station driving erratically, which no one knew about at this point because they found this later, everything seemed normal. But about 50 minutes later, at 12:58 p.m., Warren got a call.
This time, it was from his daughter, Emma. She told her dad that Aunt Diane was acting strange and apparently having trouble seeing and speaking clearly. Warren asked to talk to Diane. Diane also said that she was feeling disoriented. Warren told Diane to pull over and stay off of the road, saying that he was going to come meet up with them.
Now, it's reported that by the end of this call, Diane had stopped the van at a pull-off area just past the Tappan Zee Bridge, about 25 miles north of New York City on the Hudson River. So the kids in the car must have been pretty scared of what's going on here. If Emma took Diane's phone and called her dad for help.
Right.
I mean, imagine being a kid in a car with an adult when the adult starts acting erratically. It's terrifying because when you're a kid, you see adults as, you look to them for how you should, what's normal,
Well, also,
if you're in a good situation.
If you're a kid in a car, you are not paying attention to the driver. I mean, you're messing around with the other kids.
Yes.
So for it to be that bad that all the children are noticing that something's really wrong. It must have been pretty bad because kids usually are just doing their own thing.
Yeah, good point. But after this phone call, at least now the kids could feel a little relief that they were stopped and their dad was coming to help them.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, Diane ended the phone call unexpectedly.
She dropped her phone at the pull-off area and got back into the van. Warren tried calling her again at 1:02 p.m., but the phone just rang. Panicked, he headed out to try to find his family.
Now, at this point, Warren called 911 to try to get some help, and we're going to play what we could find of one of his calls here.
They were trying to locate the kids, and the best they could come up with was that they were at the Tarrytown Rest Center. I'm trying to help a friend of mine. His sister took his girls camping. They're very young girls. The oldest is 9. The girls just called in distress. They said that the aunt is driving very erratically. We think she's sick. The aunt isn't picking up the cell phone right now.
The sister called. She can't talk anymore. There's 3 kids in the car. They're trying to locate her. The woman's name is Diane Schuler. And just put it out to the post car.
Okay.
And see if they could locate her because the woman that's driving the car they think is having a medical emergency because she called and then she couldn't talk anymore. And she's got 5 kids in the car.
So, obviously, it's a terrifying situation for this dad and his wife.
Mm-hmm.
Even though this case is 11 years old, almost 12 years old now, it was ridiculously difficult for me to find the isolated 911 calls.
Really?
I looked for just the full raw 911 calls, but I couldn't find them anywhere. Seems like they're only available in snippets from news stations and documentaries. So I couldn't find a raw 911 call from Warren. But, I mean, what we just listened to is enough to get the feel of what was happening at this point.
Right. Scary. Really scary.
Yeah, it is.
Well, around this time, police started getting 911 calls about a red minivan driving aggressively on Route 17 and I-87. They reported aggressive tailgating, headlight flashing, honking, and drifting in and out of lanes. At 1:33 p.m., 2 separate drivers called 911 to report a minivan driving the wrong way up a freeway exit ramp. Oh my gosh, that is so dangerous.
Now it's getting really serious. It's not just reckless driving.
Yeah.
It's like attempted murder at this point.
I don't
when
even
you're
know.
driving the wrong way down a freeway.
And on an exit ramp. How? Okay.
Well, the van had turned off of Pleasantville Road in Cliff Manor, which is a road that intersects. It's perpendicular to the freeway, you know?
Okay.
So she turned off of Pleasantville Road, up an exit ramp, going. She was heading south in the northbound lane, which had to be so terrifying to
For the
cars.
kids.
Well, yeah, the poor kids in the van, and the cars heading north. Like,
Right.
what is happening?
Within the next minute, 4 more 911 calls were placed, reporting the red minivan for driving the wrong way down a Taconic
Yep, Taconic.
Taconic State Parkway, going about 75 to 85 miles per hour.
So not only is she driving the wrong way, but she's speeding. It's not like, oops, I made a wrong turn, I'm going to try to get off this safely. She is flying. Now, this next part is really disturbing, but it's the main part of the story. So, Rosie, what happened?
After driving the wrong way for 1.7 miles, at about 1:35 p.m., the red minivan collided head-on with the 2004 Chevy Trailblazer at 85 miles per hour. After the collision, the Trailblazer was flung into a 2002 Chevy Tracker.
So, this obviously is horrible for anyone inside any of these vehicles. Someone passing by saw the crash and called 911 to report it. And we'll play part of that for you now. And again, we want to warn you, this is really disturbing because you hear a real life reaction to this real life horribly tragic event. So here we go.
City Hall Police, 911 emergency.
I had an accident. Route 117. Route 117. What is this? Pleasantville Road?
Delta 9. Ma'am?
They died. Wait a second. I'm not
Route
sure.
117 at Taconic? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, are there any injuries?
I really don't know. Hold on. Let me check it out. Hold on. Hold on. Thank you. Honestly, hold on. I really don't know. Yeah, there are. There's like little kids. The kids not moving. There's a whole bunch of kids. Honestly, the car smashed.
Okay, I'll call.
So, yeah, that's hard to listen to.
Wow.
But can you imagine being in this accident or witnessing it or seeing it? Like, gives you a pit in your stomach.
It does. It really does. Diane was dead on impact, along with her 2-year-old daughter Erin and 2 of her nieces. The third niece and 5-year-old Brian were severely injured and taken to the hospital. Brian survived with horrible injuries.
To put his injuries in perspective, he was in the hospital from the time of the crash in July until early October. So 3 months to just recover from this.
Sadly, the third niece didn't make it. All 4 of the young girls in the car died. Diane's daughter Erin, as well as 8-year-old Emma, 7-year-old Alyson, and 5-year-old Katie.
Inside the Trailblazer she hit, there were 3 men. 81-year-old Michael Bastardi, 49-year-old Guy Bastardi, and their friend, 74-year-old Dan Longo. They all died as well. So a lot of families were affected because of this senseless and ridiculous, seemingly careless act. But to this day, exactly what happened between the time this family left their campground and the time of the accident is a mystery.
2 men who witnessed the crash rushed to help them. The car was on fire, so the men tried to get everyone out of the car before they burned.
Now, after they were able to get Diane out of the car, they found next to the driver's seat what appeared to be the smoking gun. There was a broken bottle, which happened to be a now empty bottle of Absolute vodka. So it's easy to draw conclusions after seeing that. But at the time, it's very possible this bottle was full and it just broke in the crash.
True.
And that the remaining vodka burned up in the wreck because the car was on fire. But we'll get to more of that later.
Next, the men tried to pull all the kids out of the car. They checked the kids for pulses, but they couldn't detect them on anyone. The kids had been so thrown around in the accident that these men didn't even see Brian, who was stuck under one of the girls.
So, horrific scene. But now as the news of this spread, people were interviewed and others called in with witness testimony. When police talked to the co-owner of the campground who saw her leaving that morning around 9 a.m., they said that she appeared to be sober when she departed. So take that for what it's worth.
2 separate people called in from different areas saying they saw someone who they believed to be Diane Schuler next to a red minivan on the side of the road with her hands on her knees appearing to be vomiting. One person at 11:45 and another at 12:30 p.m. at the Ramapo rest area. Also, shortly before Warren got a call from his scared daughter, at 12:55, Diane's phone had tried making a call, but it was a wrong number.
Now, I'd assume this was the niece trying to call her mom maybe, but getting the number wrong. Or it could have been Diane, just delirious.
Right.
And not...
attempting to get help, but not being able to connect the dots. Again, at 1:10 p.m., 3 wrong numbers were dialed from Diane's phone, and this was around the time her phone was abandoned.
Now, this is really eerie to me. So she was on the phone with Warren after her niece called him at 12:58, but then the call ended. She probably hung up on him because he tried calling back at 102 to no answer. So at first it seems like right after she talked to Warren, she just dropped her phone and left, completely disregarding what he had said. But her phone was used again 8 minutes after that. So it's possible the kids were maybe trying to use it again before they left that pull-off area where the phone was found. But I'd say, depending on exactly what happened here, if Diane was intentionally planning this tragedy that happened, she may have taken the phone away from the frightened niece as she was trying to call her dad back and just thrown it out before driving off. And I have no idea, but that's, with these 3 wrong numbers, that's kind of what it seems like.
Yeah, I can totally see where you're coming from.
It's hard to think about because there's so much trauma and pain that could have been avoided if Diane would have just waited here for her brother, which kind of makes me think this may have been intentional. Because if she was really having some kind of medical emergency, you'd think she would have realized she needs to just wait for help. But again, I just can't imagine the terror and confusion these poor kids must have had in their last moments now that we know what happened.
Well, kinda. I mean, we still don't
Well,
know.
I mean, we know how it ended for them.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Because of the empty vodka bottle and the quick nationwide attention this case received, many people drew the conclusion that Diane had been heavily intoxicated at the time of the crash.
And why wouldn't you?
Right. That's what I assumed, honestly. But her husband, Daniel, was very adamant that she barely drank, and he didn't believe she could have been drinking while driving the family home. Everyone the police talked to who knew Diane said they had never seen her drunk.
Now, one of the family members of the Bastardi men who died in the crash, Michael Bastardi, he was on the news shortly after this talking about pursuing a civil suit against Diane's family to hold them accountable with a investigation into whether they had any knowledge that Diane was drinking that morning. But one of the comments I actually saw on YouTube on this video, I think it says a lot, at least about how Diane was known by her family. It's the fact that Warren and Jackie entrusted Diane to drive their 3 little girls home. Like, if they would have been giving her alcohol or suspected her of drinking alcohol, why would they send their 3 little girls with her?
Right.
But again, so many people suffered trauma because of this. I mean, I can understand why they would want to pursue some kind of closure here.
I have a quick question, and you might have already said this, but when they went to McDonald's for breakfast, did everybody meet there together, or was it just Diane and the kids?
As far as I could tell, it's just Diane and the kids.
Okay. But the people at McDonald's didn't notice?
Well, we'll get to that.
Okay. On August 4th, a toxicology report was released, and they found something shocking. Diane's blood alcohol content was at 0.19% at the time of the crash. On top of that, there were 6 grams of alcohol in her stomach, not yet absorbed in her bloodstream.
So that's a lot of booze.
I'm so glad that you tell us how much that is.
Yeah. Well, it's said that that's equivalent to 10 shots worth of alcohol, or 10 drinks.
Whoa.
But that wasn't all. They also found high levels of THC in her blood, which you probably know is the active ingredient in cannabis, aka marijuana. So she wasn't only super drunk, but she was also high.
Though Daniel denied that his wife ever drank for a while, he did eventually admit that she drank occasionally, and she did have alcohol while they were camping, but that she was completely sober when she left that morning. He went on to say that they always kept an old bottle in their camper as a backup, and that Diane did all the packing for the trip, so she must have moved the bottle into the van that morning.
Now, it is weird that his story keeps changing, and I'm sure a lot of people look at that and find it suspicious.
Right.
But I can also understand why he'd be so fearful. If someone wants to pursue a civil suit against him about this, it's probably scary, especially when you're suffering the trauma of just losing your daughter and your wife in one sudden accident, and now your son is really severely injured. Because around this time, his son was still in the hospital. Like, he was there for 3 months, so he didn't know what the outcome of his son would be. He may have been thinking he lost his whole family.
Right. I would think it's very wrong to judge him for his actions at this point because of all the pain and trauma he's going through.
Yeah, me too. Now, police were able to speak with the gas station employee who she spoke to on that surveillance video, and they said that she asked for Tylenol, which they didn't have. But they also said, I knew for a fact that she wasn't drunk when she came into the station. So the gas station attendant's pretty positive about the fact that she was sober.
Okay. Well, according to the personal investigator hired by Daniel, none of the McDonald's employees noticed anything strange about Diane's behavior that morning. And actually, she was very chatty with them.
Now, it's interesting that you were curious about this detail earlier, because this information came from the private investigator, not from the police. So I don't know why the police didn't collect that info.
Right.
Or maybe they just didn't release it. But this info comes from the investigator hired by Daniel. So it's curious to me, but whatever.
Daniel also at first denied that his wife did drugs, but he did tell investigators that she occasionally smoked marijuana. Later, the family revealed that she used it to relieve insomnia and that she smoked it regularly. Okay, so that's a little tidbit we didn't know before.
And this is super sketchy because it wasn't legal for her to use it. Also, Daniel was actually a public security officer at the Nassau County Police Department. But I guess as a civilian, he was not required by law to report his wife's drug use.
Despite the wild levels of alcohol and THC in her blood, Diane's family believed her actions were due to a medical issue like a stroke. She was obese for most of her life and also had gestational diabetes when she was pregnant.
And it's also mentioned that she may have had type 2 diabetes, but that's not confirmed. But the autopsy did confirm that she did not suffer a stroke, aneurysm, or heart attack. They looked for signs of all three of those and didn't find them.
Apparently, she'd also had a couple of weird lumps. One was in her mouth, which had been there for 7 weeks leading up to her death, and she also had a lump in her leg.
Yeah, it's theorized that this was an abscessed tooth in her mouth, and then some kind of, what's that called? Those really big...
A goiter?
No.
Okay.
Like a really big pus-filled...
A cyst?
Kind of like that. There's a different word, but anyway, I don't want to gross everyone out. But these little conditions could coincide with one of the other theories, that she was suffering from untreated depression. You know, something like a lump in your mouth, or a tooth abscess, or a lump in your leg could be really devastating to someone who's already suffering from depression. So this theory suggests that she had made up her mind that day and that she was planning on taking her own life.
I don't know.
And used alcohol and marijuana to get the courage to do it. But yeah, I see you're skeptical.
I'm super skeptical of that.
I get it. How could she have brought herself to also take these 5 kids with her?
Exactly. If she had planned this out, why would she take the children?
So what do you think of that, Rosie?
I cannot believe that. I can't wrap my head around her wanting to take these 5 kids down with her.
Yeah.
And also wanting to endanger other people on the road. It's so reckless.
Yeah, it is. And there's another theory we're going to talk about later from a documentary made about this that might make more sense. But, I don't know. If someone's suffering really severe depression and they're secretly psychotic or sociopathic or something, and no one knows it, it's still a possibility. But again, we don't know. But what happened next?
Daniel was having a hard time believing the toxicology reports and wanted to get the samples retested. By November 7th, he was actually able to raise enough money to retest the tissue samples.
Daniel was determined to prove that his wife was who he believed she was. Pretty much the perfect mother. This is who he believed her to be. This is how he knew her, how he thought he knew her.
Mm-hmm.
But his attempts to do this rubbed the surviving family members of the 3 men who Diane killed the wrong way.
Joseph Longo, the brother of Dan Longo, who was killed in the accident, issued a statement in response to Daniel Schuler's attempts. He said, "I want Daniel Schuler to know that he keeps inflicting more pain on all concerned once again by going to the media to try to paint a picture of a perfect wife and mother."
So, this is just really sad to me how many people were hurt by this horrible thing. And I get why they would be so upset. It's got to be awful to have this dredged up again and again. But I also get why Daniel's determined to prove that his marriage wasn't a lie. This was his life. And he didn't only lose his wife, but also his 2-year-old daughter. And
his nieces.
And probably ruined his whole family relationship with his brother and sister-in-law. And again, his son was in the hospital for 3 months where that was all up in the air. Like this, raising enough money to retest was right around the time his son got out of the hospital. So he's hurting too. And I wish the survivors could be more united, all being in a similar situation and kind of bonding over that. But I also understand why this would hurt the other families so much. It just sucks.
Mm-hmm. The daughter of the Bastardis, Margaret Nicotina, also made a statement saying, "It makes me angry that he keeps denying it. Every time he does it, he brings it back for us. I just wish that he would just admit that she was drunk. Maybe if he knows what happened that morning, if they argued or anything, that would be the truth. He wants the truth, so do we."
Yeah. So that shows that they at least do want to be united. And she's got a point. It's pretty obvious that she was drunk.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the testing facility would just pull
right.
0.19 out of their butts. But even though they want to be united, they're not on the same page. So I feel bad for all of them, all of the surviving family here.
In June of 2010, after the tissues were retested and Diane Schuler was exhumed for further testing, the New York State Police issued its final report on the accident, upholding the original findings that Diane was highly intoxicated and high at the time of the accident.
So, you can't argue with that.
Mm-mm.
It seems pretty clear how this happened. But the why is still so glaring. Why would she be in this position? Was she really depressed and hiding her depression from everyone she knew? Or did she have some kind of unexplained medical situation that medical examiners didn't test for? Because they test for stroke, heart attack, and aneurysm. But if you're not looking for something, you're probably not going to find it when you're doing one of these autopsies. Because
right.
Human body is complicated. But we have no idea. And the why really can't be known by anyone. Because we're not getting any answers from what we have. All we can really do is speculate. And that's part of what makes this case so fascinating. As tragic and devastating as it is for the family, there's this mysterious wonder surrounding it.
Yeah, I'm just kind of floored. I feel so confused because she must have been in some kind of pain because she asked for pain relief medication.
Mm-hmm.
And she seemed completely sober at McDonald's.
Yeah.
How... Maybe she was drugged. But
yeah.
I don't know. I just how would that work though? I don't know. It's so weird.
The fact that she was looking for pain meds kind of contradicts the depression angle or the suicidal angle, because if you are feeling suicidal, why would you care about relieving some pain?
Unless you're using those to aid the suicide?
Can you OD on Tylenol?
I think you can OD on anything.
I guess so. But that seems like it just seems unnecessary if you're planning on driving down a freeway at 85 miles an hour the wrong way.
So does driving on the freeway 80 miles an hour the wrong way. Also seems unnecessary.
Yeah.
Very
But that's why I'm
bizarre.
thinking that it doesn't really make sense with the premeditated suicide thing.
Yeah.
But everyone has a different school of thought. There's other people out there who are much more qualified than me that have theories about it, that this might have been premeditated murder. Like, we don't know. But legally, what happened?
Well, legally, the crash was ruled as a homicide, but no charges were filed since the perpetrator had been killed in the crash. But the Bastardi family really wanted someone to pay, and they were upset that there was no grand jury investigation into what led up to the crash.
Yeah, so they're wondering if any of Diane's family could have enabled this by providing alcohol or pot to her before she drove. But again, like I mentioned earlier, the people she was with sent their children with her. This just doesn't make any sense that they would knowingly send their children off to die like this. And it's just so sad to me that after all this tragedy that came out of this, the people surviving were so at each other's throats over it. And it doesn't end there. We're going to talk about even more just drama and strain that came out of this within relationships. But going through such a devastating thing can really fling you into this defensive fight or flight response where you're not thinking clearly, and simultaneously you want to make sense out of it or make someone pay, get some justice. So it makes sense the way all these people were feeling.
Right.
All of their feelings were valid. But in July of 2011, another strange thing happened.
Right. Jackie Hance, whose 3 daughters died in the crash, actually filed a suit against her brother-in-law, Diane's husband Daniel. The suit claimed that her 3 daughters suffered terror, fear of impending death, extreme horror, fright, and mental anguish.
So this is a grieving mother. She's in so much pain. She's lost all 3 of her daughters in one moment because of her sister-in-law, who Daniel keeps defending. Again, I see why she would file this.
I do too.
And this same month, on the 2nd anniversary of the crash, Daniel filed his own suit.
What? Okay. Daniel sued the state for not keeping the roads safe, and he sued his brother-in-law, Warren, the father of the 3 girls who died, as the owner of the minivan that his wife and daughter died in. Oh, boy.
This is literally tearing this family apart. And I feel like a broken record, but it's just so sad. All of these people are in so much pain. They're all looking for someone to blame. They're all looking for closure, but it's nowhere to be found.
Yeah, I don't know. That...
And it just makes me think, these mysterious cases are fascinating to learn about and to listen to, but you gotta think about the families too, the families who are affected by a mystery case because they don't have any closure or any solid answers.
Unfortunately, I don't think it's the state's fault.
No.
For the roads.
It's, again, he's grasping at straws.
Yeah.
Looking for any possible thing, any possible way to find closure.
Yeah.
Again,
oh, how sad.
I know. It's sad all the way around.
By July of 2014, all the lawsuits had either been settled or dropped. Interestingly, in November 2009, just 4 months after the crash, Law & Order released an episode called Doped, which centers a crash very similar to this one where a woman speeds the wrong way down a freeway and kills her daughter and 2 nieces, along with a family in another car.
So obviously, just a few months after this, it was inspired by the case.
It's a little fresh.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how the Bastardi family felt too. They were furious that the NBC drama would base an entire episode on their real life tragedy. And it's not like a true crime episode where it's telling their story and, empathizing with them, raising awareness. It's making a drama that they can own the rights to because they changed a few details and basically capitalizing off of someone else's misery.
I'm sure there really wasn't anything they could do.
Yeah, they didn't. I mean, they changed the story just enough where
Right.
they don't have to buy rights. But it's way too soon, as far as human decency goes, to be inspired by this case.
There's also a documentary which premiered on the 2nd-year anniversary of the tragedy called There's Something Wrong with Aunt Diane. In this documentary, they suggest that Diane may have been suffering from severe pain caused by a tooth abscess, causing her to self-medicate with alcohol and marijuana after not being able to find painkillers at the gas station. Interesting.
Yeah, what do you think of that?
Actually, well, it's still very reckless, but I guess if she was in that much pain and
Yeah.
the alcohol was right there, I don't know.
Well,
and she was a user.
Read this next part first, and
Okay.
then we'll talk about it.
It theorizes that the pain of the tooth abscess combined with the substances may have put her in a state of delirium, which triggered her fatal behavior.
So, in other words, her body was so overwhelmed with pain, and then she tried to medicate it with drugs, that the combination of that, basically took away her control over herself. Which I'm not trying to take any of the responsibility off of her, but this is a theory.
This sounds a lot more palatable than her wanting to kill all the children in the car, along with terrorizing and potentially killing a lot of other people on the road.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it also makes more sense, I guess, because she was looking for pain meds. We know that she had a lump in her mouth, which turns out was a tooth abscess, probably. I mean, tooth pain is one of the most infuriating pains you can have. Remember when we had braces, it was the worst pain when your mouth was hurting. So we can't rule out this possibility.
Mm-hmm.
But still, it's so irresponsible to use any mind-altering drug when you're responsible for children.
Right.
So even if this is the theory, it's still the blame lies on Diane. But like you said, this theory at least attempts to make some sense out of what happened.
Mm-hmm. Well, Jackie Hance wrote a book where she talks about the initial grief she experienced and then trying to go on with life afterwards. It's called I'll See You Again. Jackie and Warren went on to form the Hance Family Foundation, where they support innovative self-esteem educational programs in honor of their daughters' lives. Their central project is called Beautiful Me, to help young girls appreciate their genuine qualities while encouraging accurate self-awareness and promoting the satisfaction that comes from helping others.
So it sounds like they do really good work, and that's amazing that they used their family tragedy as inspiration to go on and help other people.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Jackie and Warren seem like awesome people. One more interesting thing that we're just throwing in at the end here is that Daniel Schuler, Diane's husband, was offered $100,000 from Moxie Firecracker Films for the right to record his wife's exhumation back in 2010 when they were doing all those retestings.
Mm-hmm.
And he accepted it and placed it in a trust for his son Brian.
That's really disgusting, though. I mean, come on. Why would you want to they're recording it for the benefits of entertainment for other people. And I don't blame him for taking the money so he could help his son out in the future. But what a terrible choice to make, to have to do this for money. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I think they were going to do it anyway for the testing. They just asked if they could film it to document it. I don't know.
Well, I know that they were going to exhume her, but I'm just talking about record this Moxie Firecracker Films. And I don't know. That just sounds pretty terrible to have to say, yes, that's okay.
I wonder if that was for the documentary.
Might have been.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't have a strong opinion on it. I think it's good that he put the money towards his son's future.
Yeah,
so,
no, it is. It's just, I guess, as someone who has a close family member who died, I would not be super thrilled about that. But very interesting case.
Yeah, it is. And I don't know how I feel right now. I'm sad, but I'm also, just weirded out.
It's very unsettling.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, listeners, if you feel unsettled now. I know one of our listeners, I hope she doesn't mind if I mention her name, Alice, doesn't like mysteries that much. But I've always wanted to talk about the story because I heard it on Gen Y a long time ago, and it just grabbed me in the fact that all these kids lost their lives and all these families were affected, and the way it caused so much turmoil in these relationships. It's a wild case, and I mean, everything we talk about is really disturbing, so.
Yeah, just like how insane for the other drivers just to lose your life so fast, so unexpectedly.
Yeah.
It really makes you think to appreciate the little things.
Yeah, exactly. I think I said that in an episode, like, when we first started this podcast, that was one of the things I said.
Yeah.
I appreciate about talking about these stories is that it makes me think about what I really have and appreciate every moment, because you don't know when your life could suddenly change or even be gone. So, that's some heavy stuff, but we're going to wrap it up there.
That is heavy.
So, Rosie, do you have anything else to say before we say goodbye?
I'm on day 26 of working out.
Wow.
I guess I'll squeeze that in.
I mean, you're living your best life, and I'm really proud of you.
Thank you.
As good as it can get during this time.
Thank you.
Cool. Well, if this is your first time listening, we're on Instagram at VOV Podcast and Facebook at Voice of the Victim Support System, and also Patreon. We have, 17 premium episodes over there now that you can listen to. And we're releasing a second Patreon episode this month to make up for our inadequacies last month. So we're putting out 2 Patreon episodes this month.
And we have it written and ready to go.
It's written. We just haven't had time to record it yet because this is Rosie's busy work week. But we will be putting it up as soon as possible.
Yes.
Hopefully by this weekend. So, yeah, look forward to that if you're a patron. And I think that's it.
Yeah, I think that's it too, actually.
All right. Well, thank you guys for listening. We hope you're hanging in there and staying healthy and just able to enjoy life as much as possible right now, even with all the stuff going on. And we'll talk to you next week.
Bye.